So the big question is this: how do aspiring real estate investors like us escape from the rat race and build real wealth and freedom without access to millions of dollars in investment capital and start to live the life that we know we deserve? This is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Zack Childress, and welcome to Real Estate Investing Talk Show. So the question lies is, today's topic is all about money. What the topic is 4 ways to invest your money in real estate. And so we're going to spend some time on that. And I got a question right out the gate, automating leads, which we're going to talk about. So welcome to the show. For everyone that's new on here, welcome to your REI Talk Show. My name's Zack Childress. I am your host. Welcome to the Zack Attack Network and all the things that we do here. I encourage you to pay attention, listen, join the community, be part of what we do, share this video, like this video, give it thumbs up, let other people know what we're talking about, because some people honestly are afraid to talk about money. And it's typically because they don't want to look at where they are financially. They don't want to acknowledge all the expenses they have or the little bit of income they've got coming in, or they don't even want to pull their head out of the hole because they have so many expenses that they have to pay for. And when they look at it, it gets nervous. Well, let me tell you something. If you want to get better at the money game, you've got to understand how money operates. And money is not a root of all evil. Money is a tool. That's what money is. Money is a tool to help you get better advantages when it comes to a financial stable life. So we have to start thinking about money not as the root of all evil, or I don't have it, or I don't know how to get it, but we have to think about money as a tool. If I want to go build a bird's house, I need tools. I need lumber, I need hammer, and I need nails and a saw, right? If I have lumber, hammer, nails, and a saw, I can build a birdhouse. Well, if I want to find financial freedom, then I need money, right? I need to get access to money or use my own money in the correct way. And so we're going to talk about, there's really 4 quadrants if you really were to think about money being used in real estate in a simplistic way. It's 4 ways. It's 4 quadrants. So if you took a sheet of paper and you drew a line down it and a line across, you'd have 4 quadrants. And we're going to talk about each one of those quadrants today. Aria says, is it hard to get financing for deals when you're a new investor? Let's talk about that. That's another question. So I've got automated leads and financing deals as a new investor. Okay, so those are the 2 questions I'm going to get to. But first off, let's just make sure everybody gets the value out of what we're talking about today, the 4 quadrants of real estate money investing, right? That's what it boils down to. So I want to share those with you. Let's see here. What do I got going on right now? I got a stuck screen. So hopefully I'm still live. Mine's spinning. Let's see. Jeremy, you getting good feed over there? Okay. Well, maybe mine will catch up then. So here's where I want you to look at. So when we're talking about money, we want to think of it from a point of view of what's the best use of my money? How do I get the best types of returns on my money? And what type of time is it taking for me to make that money on my money, which we're also referring to financial literacy, right? Financial literacy is the game of which we go out and use real estate to make that money. So, all right. So here's the thing. Let's just jump right in. I don't want to waste your time. I'm sorry about all this. But when it comes to money, we got to think of money in a couple of ways. Number one, what's the best use of my money? How can I maximize my money? And then the second big part of it is time involvement, right? Like, how do I make money without a lot of my time involvement? So when we look at the 4 parts of the quadrant for real estate involvement of money, the very first one that we look at is flips. So in the top left square of your quadrant is flips. Now, the beauty of flips is it requires money, right? Whether it's your money or somebody else's money, it requires money. But the benefit of flips is that you gain equity, right? So what that means is when you put money into a deal that you're going to fix up and flip, you're gaining the equity spread. And that equity spread comes from how you bought it versus what it'll sell for and how you managed that project throughout, which created a windfall of an equity spread for whatever, 15,000 or 40,000, whatever that spread is. So if you take flips, what are the gains in flips when it comes to money invested? Whether that's your money or someone else's money, it's equity. You're gaining equity, right? You're investing for an equity position back, which then gives you a return on that money, right? But if we look at the other side of that, it requires time, right? You have to put a lot of time in. You got to manage the process. You got to manage the team. If you're brand new, you're probably managing the entire project. Whereas you get more systemized and you get to a better, clear understanding of rehabs, you just start managing the teams, but you're still in an active role. You're managing. So when we look at flips, one of the ways to put money into real estate is to put it into a flip, right? And you get a return based on the equity that you gain from the sale of the property. But that takes time, takes a management process and time. So that's number one. Number two is when we start looking at long-term income producing properties, what we also refer to as long-term holds, rental properties, cash flow properties. Well, the benefit of that is there's two folds, right? So where flips, we get one fold, that's equity. Well, rental properties, we get two folds, okay? We get equity because we buy it at one price. And if we ever go to sell it one day in the future, whether that be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we get an equity spread, whether that is from paying down debt or how we bought it or the market changed and the price went up, we get an equity spread. So we get the same thing as a flip, which is the equity spread. But the second thing that we gain, because it's a cash flow producing property and we're paying debts off, we get a cash flow per month, which is equal to a return. So we were able to calculate a return on our money. So we get the bump in the equity on the back end, but we get the cash flow return from holding rental properties. So we get a return and an equity. But there again, with long-term holds, they're like flips. We have to manage, right? We have to be involved. We have to make sure either we're self-managing the property, trying to save some money to get a better rate of return, or we're managing the management company to make sure the property is being ran correctly. Or in some cases, like with us, we manage the management company, but we don't allow the management company to do any of the repairs. If there's repairs needed, we bring our own people in, so we're managing that process. So both of those top quadrants have gains, right? Flips have equity gain. Long-term cash flow properties have equity and a return gain, but both of those top quadrants have time management associated with them. They have time involved, management involved. There is an hour traded for dollars, right? Even though people say, oh, well, long-term holds is passive investments. It's really not a passive investment strategy, especially if you're buying rental properties, because you're not being passive. You're still being involved because you're having to manage the management or you're having to change management. There's still some involvement with you. It does lean towards a little bit more of a passive investing strategy, but you still have to be involved when it comes to that aspect of the business. And so that is usually where people start. They start with, well, a lot of times people start with wholesaling and then they move into fix and flips. But that is where they usually come in. They come in and fix and flips. They're making gains on equity. They move into buy and hold. So now they're positioning themselves for equity gain, but they're also getting a return on the dollars because of the cash flow each month. But I want to talk about two other quadrants, the lower two quadrants. And this is where a lot of people probably are a better fit, just because they don't have the time involved to maybe do rehabs, or they don't even want to do it. They don't really have the time or the know-how to build a large rental portfolio and manage that rental portfolio, but yet they've got money and they want to invest it. So the bottom left quadrant of the 4 ways to invest money is private lending. Now, this is where you really do get into some passive investing, because you're not having to be involved. You're able to put money out into a deal. You get a security off of that deal, which is a mortgage note. So you have an invested capital with the rights to get your money back if all else fails by taking the property back. So there's what they call a security there. Now, I'm not acting as an FTC attorney. I'm not representing any legal advice to you here today. I'm not asking you to send me money. Let's just be clear on this. But I'm just talking to you about how deal structures are formed. So through private lending, there's gain. The gain through private lending is the interest in which we make on the loan we put out. So that is reference to a return on our money. Same way as if we look at the top quadrant on the right, the long-term rentals. We get a return on our money, except in the long-term rentals, we get equity, right? We get the return plus equity. Where in private lending, we get the return. There is no equity in most deals when you structure private lending. They're what's called a debt partner, they're coming in, loaning you money at 8-10% or whatever the case may be, and they're getting interest on their money. Now, the other good news about private lending is when we look at the time quadrant, where flips and long-term holds, we are actively involved in time. Where private lending, there is no time involvement. You don't have to go out and manage everything and make sure things are being done right. It's more of a passive time involvement. You're putting money out with an interest rate, with a secured mortgage against the property for your interest, and you're just letting that money work. So you're getting interest. But then there's the fourth quadrant, which is a quadrant that works very well. And this is something that if you haven't considered, you probably should consider it. And maybe this is something that we do need to talk about, and you can private message me about this if you want. But there is a world out there of investors that do what's called syndications. And this has a huge benefit to you if you're trying to accomplish two things. If you're trying to accomplish equity plus returns plus no time involved. So that's a 3-hit, right? Where flips, you get equity, you have time involved, and you get no interest. Long term, when you're buying rental properties, you get equity and return, but you have time involved. Where private lending, you get interest, no equity, but you don't have time involved. Where syndications are something that could really benefit a lot of people, because here's why. If you structure the syndication correctly that you're getting involved with, you can get interest on the amount of money you're bringing to the table. Plus, you can get, which the interest creates a return on your money, plus you can get an equity position in the deal. So now we're gaining as a long-term hold, right? We're getting equity and interest. But here's the best part with a syndication. There's usually an active role of a manager that manages the syndication or manages the role, and they get their portion of the deal because of that role. So that means there's no time involved for you. So you're able to move into a syndication and you're able to get a vested interest in the deal as a debt investor, and you get an equity role as an equity investor. But the beauty of it is you get to sit back and be a true passive investor. So this is why when people say I'm a passive investor, I'll always say, well, how many syndications are you in? Well, I'm not in a syndication. Well, how passive are you then? Well, I own rental properties. Well, you're not a passive investor, right? A passive investor is gaining both. They're gaining an equity role and they're gaining a debt role from a return on their money, but they don't have to be directly involved in the day-to-day operations. They don't have to be directly involved in communicating with the growth of the property or the turn of the property or the stabilization of the property. They're using their position as a money partner to leverage their money in the most passive and aggressive way that they can to compound that money over time. And so this is why I say for people who don't want to do flips and don't want to manage properties, private lending could be an avenue, but syndication would be a better avenue because, yeah, they may not make as much on the actual gain or return on interest as a private investor, but they get the gain and the interest and the return made up on the back end because of the equity position they're in when it comes to that type of syndication. And for those of you that don't understand, syndication is where people come together with money to go after a real estate transaction. They're just typically not the managing role in that type of property. So someone else does that. But the best part about the two lower quadrants is there's no time involved for you. Private investing, there's no time involved, but you only get a return. Whereas syndication type structure, there's no time on your part invested in the deal, but you get an equity and you get an interest type position, which means you get a return on your money, plus you get an equity position on the property, which allows you to grow your money exponentially without having to be in the day-to-day grind of the day management of the assets or the properties. So when you think about real estate and you think about the 4 ways to put money in real estate, that's really the 4 ways. Now there's other investing avenues. You could go buy tax liens and tax notes and mortgages and all of that, which put you more into like a return type investor, right? And there could be some equity positions in those, but then you have to ask the other question, time, right? How much time do I have to put into the deal? So 4 ways, guys, 4 ways. Think about which quadrant you're in, which one do you want to be in, and how are you going to get there in the fastest way possible? If you want to send a private message to me, if something on the 2 bottom quadrants sound interesting, but you want some clarity, let me know. I do have 2 questions to answer, and I want to talk about that. Manny says invest in a real estate investment trust. I'm not a big fan of REITs, which is what he's talking about, only because there's so much control by the REIT and you're locked down so much, and if you want out, there's like, you get hit with like 30% penalties. I'm just not a big fan of that. It's locked up where syndications aren't really that well. So let's see here. Kenneth says, hopefully they're on desktops. Kenneth says, if you're on the phone, it's your broadband. Got it. Benjamin says, sound good, man. Keep going. Thank you. Took you long enough. Thanks, Benjamin. Daniel says, we can see and hear you. Awesome. Buy rental properties. That's 1 quadrant, Manny. Private money lending. Let the money work for you. That's another quadrant. I just want you guys to understand there's multiple quadrants. So let me go back to these 2 questions. So question number 1 is, how do you automate lead flow? Well, if you're going to automate lead flow, you got to have some form of what's called a funnel. And so when you're automating lead flow, you're taking leads, pushing them into a funnel, whether that's a web form or a call center, to pre-screen that lead and then put that into a dashboard. And so I share that with you because that's how you start to automate the lead flow. So it goes through a pre-screening process. Then you get a dashboard that shows all your leads that have been submitted and which one of them shows some sign of motivation, right? So you can work those leads. Now, there are things like Podio, and we have the REI robot, if you've looked into that helps you take leads through a lead process or a lead flow, so that you can determine where that lead is as you move it through the process. And so, but it all starts with the front end lead automation flow, which is into some web form, whether it be an Aweber process, but then into a call center that they can do pre-screening and help you through that avenue, into some form of dashboard. That allows you to automate more of that lead flow. And AJ, I know you and I know you and your dad. I believe you have access to the REI robot, so I would use that. The other one was sent in. The other question that got sent in was financing deals for a new investor. So when you're a new investor, sometimes banks are going to give you a little bit of pushback, and rightfully so, because they're just not clear on how you're going to operate the business. But let me talk to you about this. There are lots of banks that will still work with you if you're going the traditional route. You just have to dig and find those. You have to constantly be looking for them. You have to constantly be interviewing them, because here's why. A bank, if you've got a 620 credit score or higher and you've got some, the ability to show financials, 2 years tax returns, credit score, things like that, a personal financial statement. If you've got that type of ability, then what you do have at that point is you have a leverage with lending institutions that most people don't have. And you might say, well, I'm new, but here's the thing. If the deal is a deal and that bank knows that it's a deal, they're going to fund it because they're going to know that there's safety in that deal. just like them putting a mortgage on their property, same way as a private lender putting a mortgage on a property. So they have a vested interest to get theirs back through the deal. And so that's one avenue. Another way for new investors is to go out and find private lenders or find asset-based lenders or hard money lenders. They'll typically work with new people too. Asset and hard money lenders, they may charge you more. They may charge you more because it's your first deal, but at the end of the day, you just need to start doing some deals. So if they're going to charge you more, that's okay. Let that happen so that you can get some deals under your belt so that you can go back and have a little bit of leverage now and say, hey, look, I've done 3, 4, 5, 6 deals and I need a better rate from you guys because now you're somebody they want to work with. You've proven the model. With private lenders, they're more of a personal relationship. So that's somebody that knows you, trusts you, is willing to fund you and back you or support you in the process. So it's a little bit easier. So as a new person, if you have the ability to dock up, let's be clear there, 2 years tax returns, personal financial statement, credit score, typically 620 and higher, then you want to be talking traditional banks. You want to be out there getting the money in line, getting the money where it needs to be. From there, if you don't have that ability, you need to be moving into asset or hard money lenders and also building your relationship with private lenders. But it's a numbers game. I'm telling you, it's a numbers game. You got to be out there looking for these lenders all the time. You never stop. One of the things I tell people all the time, 2 things you'll never stop doing in this business, and that is raising money and marketing. Raising money and marketing. 2 things you'll never stop doing. You'll do it forever. And as soon as you slow down doing it, well, that's when you're going to need to do it the most. So be out there, be on the grind, and just make it happen. So anyways, back to the 4 quadrants. Appreciate those 2 questions that came in today. But back to the 4 quadrants. Remember, there's 4 ways of money. You can put money into flips or borrow money and put it into flips, and you get an equity spread. Long-term cash flow properties, well, flips, it takes time, right? The long-term cash flow properties, you get equity and you get a return, but you also have to put the time in. The 2 bottom quadrants is private lending, which you get a return, no equity, but you get a return, but there's really no time involved. And that's why it makes it easy for somebody to say, look, I just want to be a little bit more passive. Then you have syndications where there's a group of people coming together to go after typically a larger type investment deal. And from there, what happens is that larger investment deal becomes a conglomerate, a joint effort of people to take it down. Well, in a syndication, where you can benefit is you can get the benefits of everything. You can get the return on your money, which is an interest rate, and you can get an equity position in the deal, which makes it even better on the back end. But also, you won't have any time involved because there's typically a managing partner that has been doing this for a long time and understands it, already manages other properties, has a management team in place, has the systems together, and you're just plugging into that and then letting it run. So that's your 4 quadrants when it comes to the 4 ways to invest your money in real estate, to think about it from a smart point of view. But don't be afraid to talk about money, guys. Talk about money. Get money on the table. Think about what you got, what you're going to do with it, and how you're going to deploy that money. Because if you're not talking about it, nothing's going to happen to your money. And let me tell you this, you may be watching this saying, well, Zack, I ain't got no money. Well, you need to be out there talking to people who have money. Getting that money to the table, for your deals. Maybe you've got to start with flips and start putting that money together so that you can move into holds and build some cash flow, build a portfolio so that you can start creating more money on your money so you can move into more syndications or more private investing. So I hope this show helps you today to think about money. And if you're on the bottom 2 quadrants, private message me if you got some questions about it and want to get some clarity on it. Just send me a private message. I'll fire you back an answer and see if I can't get you in the right direction. So, hey, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Think about the money. Talk about the money. Get your money in order. Because if you don't do it, no one else is going to do it for you. And then you're going to wake up one day wondering why you missed out. So, hey, this is Zack Childress. I am your real estate coach. Thanks for being on this show today. I'll see you next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. And I'll be here answering questions again. Until then, I'll see you on the flip side. See ya.
You've been listening to the Real Estate Investing Talk Show. I'm Zack Childress, and I'm on a mission to create 10,000 real estate bosses over the next year. Will you be one of them? Head over to my website, reisuccessacademy.com/web class, and register for my free web class where you'll discover how to escape from the 9-to-5 grind and become your own boss in real estate. See you there.